That night I couldn't sleep at all. Not because of what Emma said, but because of my own reaction. I kept replaying tiny little moments from the past few days. Callan was always the first to greet me every morning, always asking if I'd taken my medicine. Whenever I coughed, he'd instinctively hand me a cup of water before I could even reach for it myself. When I went for my lung checkup, he joked that the room had suddenly gone boringly quiet. Each thing on its own was completely ordinary, but put together, they looked exactly like pieces of something bigger. I turned my head slightly. Callan was asleep. The night light cast a soft yellow glow over his face. For the first time, I had the chance to really look at him closely. A high-nose bridge, long eyelashes, brown hair slightly tousled from washing it that evening. Asleep, his face looked much younger than the confident version he showed during the day. I found myself smiling, then immediately turned away. Nash! I jumped. I'm not asleep. Callan still had his eyes closed. You scared me. I heard you sigh. Did I? Yeah. I thought you were thinking about your project. I hesitated. No. Then thinking about who? My heart gave a sudden thud. Good thing the lights were off. Otherwise he'd have seen exactly how red my face had gone. I'm not thinking about anyone. Sure. Callan chuckled softly. I believe you. He clearly didn't believe it at all. The next morning, the doctor delivered good news. Nash, the results are very good. If the fever doesn't come back, you can be discharged tomorrow. I should have been happy. I really should have been. I'd missed school. Missed the apartment I shared with 2 friends. Missed my drafting table. But strangely, the moment I heard the news, the first thing that popped into my head was a question. What about Callan? I glanced over. He smiled right away. Congrats. Finally free. What about you? I've probably got another 3 or 4 days. Physical therapy starts next week. He said it very lightly, but I still caught a small trace of disappointment in it. Or maybe I was the one who was disappointed. At noon, we shared our last meal together before my discharge. Callan suddenly set down his fork. Nash. Do you believe in the kind of friendship where just a few days is enough to become really close? I do. Why? I'm living it right now. He smiled. Same here. I used to think that once we left the hospital, we'd each go back to our own lives. Probably hard to see each other again. I stayed quiet. That was true. The university was huge. Different departments, different schedules, different friend groups. We might only run into each other by chance a few times a semester. Or never. The thought weighed heavy on me. I don't want that. I blurted it out. Callan looked at me. Don't want what? I don't want to lose touch. The moment I said it, I immediately felt embarrassed. Had I spoken too fast? Did I seem too eager? But Callan just smiled. Me neither. He set his phone on the table. Exchange numbers? I smiled. Sure. We saved each other's numbers. His name appeared in my contacts. Callan. No last name. No nickname. Just a single name. And yet I kept staring at it. That afternoon, we decided to take one more walk around the hospital garden. The maple leaves kept falling. A light breeze blew past. Callan bent down and picked up a particularly pretty red leaf. He handed it to me. A gift. Why? A keepsake. A leaf as a gift? It's free. I thought you'd give something more valuable. You're asking for a lot. I laughed, carefully pressing the leaf into my notebook. If you become a famous architect someday, don't forget me. Why would I forget? In case you get rich, I'll still remember. What about you? Callan looked toward the campus in the distance. If I ever build the mobility assist device I've been dreaming of, I'll hire you to design the building for my company. The first building? Yeah. Deal. We looked at each other and laughed together. At the time, neither of us knew that the promise, which felt like a joke, would actually come true years later. That evening, Emma stopped by again. She brought a large paper bag with her. A farewell gift. I opened it. Inside were cookies, chocolate, a small notebook, and a blue pencil. Why a pencil? Emma smiled. Callan said you always lose your pens. I turned to him. You said that? Callan shrugged. Just an observation. I suddenly remembered. On the first day, I helped him type up his report. I'd had to borrow a pen from a nurse because I couldn't find my own. Such a small thing. And he'd remembered it too. Emma propped her chin on her hand, looking between the two of us. I'm just going to say it. Say what? If I didn't know better, I'd think you two had known each other since high school. We've barely known each other a week. I know, but the way you two look at each other doesn't look like people who just met. The whole room went quiet. I quickly ducked my head to drink some water. Callan pretended to check his phone. Emma giggled. All right, I'll stop teasing. But before she left, she turned back to look at us. Her gaze was much more serious this time. You two, stay in touch. There are people who, if you lose them once, you'll never find again. The door closed behind her. I looked over at Callan. He was already looking at me. Neither of us said anything. And yet, in that look, I saw something neither of us had the courage to name yet. Tomorrow I'd be discharged. This might be the last night we slept in the same room. And I started to feel afraid. Not afraid of the illness. Not afraid of going back to school. But afraid that once the hospital door closed behind me, the distance between Callan and me would slowly become two parallel lines, each of us thrown back into our separate lives, until the most beautiful story of our 20s became nothing but a brief memory. I had no idea that the next morning, before leaving the hospital, Callan would say something to me that would leave my heart with no way back. I woke up earlier than usual. The sky outside the window had only just begun to brighten. The city was still half asleep. A few scattered cars drove along the road below the hospital, leaving pale yellow trails through the thin morning mist. Today was the day I'd be discharged. The thing I'd been looking forward to all week. And yet, when the nurse walked in, smiling, and said, "Congratulations, Nash. You finally get to go home," I could only manage a stiff smile in return. It was such a strange feeling, like recovering from an illness, yet still missing something inside. Or rather, missing someone. Callan was still asleep. At least I thought so. I quietly folded my clothes into my backpack, trying not to make a sound. The notebook, the laptop, earbuds, the red maple leaf he'd given me. I carefully pressed it between two sturdy pages so it wouldn't break. It was just a leaf, but I didn't understand why I treasured it so much. Maybe because it was the first gift a boy had ever given me without any special occasion at all. Not a birthday, not Christmas, just simply a keepsake. I thought you'd sneak off. Callan's voice came from behind me. I turned around. He'd been awake for a while, leaning back against the headboard, his hair messier than usual. Did I wake you? No. I never sleep well anyway. He looked at the backpack on my shoulder. That was fast. Yeah. I walked closer. Remember to take your medicine on time. Callan laughed. That's supposed to be my line. I'm serious. So am I. We laughed together. But today's laughter didn't feel as light as it had on other days. Something quiet had slipped into the space between our two beds. Around 8 o'clock, the doctor finished the discharge paperwork. I signed the forms, listened to the instructions, received my prescription. The nurse removed the 4 from my arm. All done. I rubbed my wrist gently. A week ago, I'd only wanted this moment to come as fast as possible. Now, I wished they'd take a few more minutes. My parents didn't come. My family lived in Portland, almost 3 hours from school by car. I told them not to bother, since it was just a discharge. My roommates would pick me up. They texted that they'd be there in about 20 minutes, which meant I had 20 minutes left with Callan. We sat in silence for a long while, until Callan spoke up. Nash. Do you remember the first thing I said to you? I'm Callan. Nice to have a neighbor. He smiled. You actually remember. Of course. I also remember you said you hoped to only be here a few days. Thinking back on it now, I feel like that was a foolish thing to say. Why? Because if I'd been discharged earlier, I wouldn't have had time to get to know you. My heart tightened. I have something for you. Callan opened the drawer, took out a small notebook, the very one I'd seen him scribbling random notes in every night. He tore out a page, wrote something very quickly, then folded it in half, handed it to me. Don't open it now. What is it? A reminder. Of what? Just hold on to it. I took it, carefully tucked it into my wallet. I'll open it when I get home. Okay. Right then, my phone buzzed. We're in the parking lot. I glanced at the screen, then looked back at Callan. My friends are here. Okay. He nodded. The air suddenly grew so heavy I found it harder to breathe than when I'd first been admitted. I put on my backpack, stood up. So, yeah, I'll get going. Yeah. Neither of us moved. Neither of us hugged the other. We just stood a little over a meter apart, a very short distance, but neither of us was brave enough to close it. I turned around, took 3 steps. Nash. I spun back around immediately. Callan was looking at me. His eyes were completely different from usual. No more teasing. No more calm composure. Just a sincerity so raw it made my heart tremble. Can I say something? Go ahead. He took a deep breath. I don't know if this is friendship or something else. All I know is, ever since you were in the bed next to mine, every morning I hoped you'd be the first thing I saw when I opened my eyes. Every time the doctor called you in for a checkup, I found myself waiting for the door to open. And this morning, I realized, I really don't want you to leave. The whole room fell silent. I felt a lump rise in my throat. Callan smiled faintly. Don't worry. I'm not asking you to answer. I just didn't want to regret staying silent later. I looked at him. Then, without meaning to, I smiled. You're such an idiot. Huh. I was planning to wait a few weeks after being discharged and ask you out for coffee. Callan blinked. Really? Yeah. Because I took a deep breath. For the first time in my life, I stopped hiding from myself. I like guys too. And I think I'm starting to like you. Callan stood frozen. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Then he smiled. A smile brighter than any I'd ever seen from him. I was just about to ask. Ask what? Coffee. I burst out laughing. You're too slow. No. He shrugged. I've still got a chance. Right then, my phone buzzed again. Where are you? I turned off the screen, stepped back toward him. This time, the 1 meter distance between us finally disappeared. I opened my arms. Can I get a hug? Callan didn't answer. He just stepped forward, wrapped his good arm tightly around me. The hug wasn't intense, wasn't rushed, just enough for me to feel his heartbeat. Enough to know that from that day on, I wasn't the only one falling anymore. But we both understood. This was only the beginning. Once we stepped outside the hospital doors, college life would truly begin testing the feelings between 2 young men. And neither of us imagined that just a month later, a misunderstanding on campus would nearly cost us each other before we ever officially became a couple. I left the hospital room after that hug. A few steps away, I still turned back to look. Callan was still standing by the door. He raised his right arm to wave at me. I waved back. The elevator doors slowly closed. The moment his face disappeared behind the metal doors, I felt an inexplicable hollowness inside. 1 week. We'd only known each other for exactly 1 week. And yet the feeling of parting was like leaving behind someone who'd been by my side for a very long time. Hey! The moment I stepped into the hospital lobby, I heard a familiar shout. Jake and Oliver, my 2 roommates, came running over. Jake gave my shoulder a light punch. You scared the hell out of us. Oliver looked me up and down. Still skinny. I was always skinny. Even skinnier now. I laughed. Let's go. Jake grabbed my backpack. This time, once we're home, no touching the laptop. No staying up past 11. No more than 4 cups of coffee a day. We're keeping an eye on you. Do I get to object? No. Where's the democracy in that? Doesn't exist in this apartment. I shook my head, laughing. It had been a long time since I'd felt so clearly that I wasn't alone. On the drive back to school, Jake kept rattling off stories. Professor Smith had let the whole class turn in late assignments. Oliver had set the microwave on fire. A raccoon had wandered into the dorm parking lot, and it took the security guard almost an hour to chase it off. I laughed through the whole ride. But every few minutes, I'd catch myself checking my phone. No new messages. I bet. Jake glanced at me. You're waiting for a text. Huh. Don't play dumb. I've seen you check your phone 5 times already. I was just checking the time. Every 10 seconds? I had nothing to say to that. Oliver rested his chin on his hand. Which girl is it? There's no one. Jake grinned slyly. Or maybe, your hospital roommate? I flinched. How'd you know? Your answer just now gave it away. I put my head in my hands. I'm done for. Jake burst out laughing. We were just guessing. Now we know for sure. That afternoon, after unpacking, I finally remembered the note Callan had given me. I took out my wallet. The paper was still folded neatly. I took a breath, then opened it. Just one line. The handwriting slightly slanted, very neat. If one day you ever feel like you have to face the whole world alone, remember there was once a bed by a window where someone believed in you. Below it was a tiny smiley face. I stared at that line for a long time. Without realizing it, the corners of my mouth had lifted. Right at that moment, my phone buzzed. Callan. I picked up immediately. Hello. Made it home. Yeah. Are your friends making you rest? Yeah. Called it. I had a feeling you'd call too. Really? Yeah. On the other end, Callan laughed. That laugh made my room feel strangely warm. From that day on, we started texting every day. In the morning. Up yet? Don't forget your meds. At noon. Cafeteria's selling pizza today. I'm jealous of healthy people. In the evening. How's the arm? Hurts less now. Some conversations went on for hours. Some days it was just a photo of the sky. Cup of coffee. A dog crossing the quad. The strange thing was, not a single message ever bored me. 3 days later, Callan was discharged. He sent me a photo, standing in front of the hospital entrance. A bag over one shoulder, his other hand giving a thumbs up, along with the caption, finally sprung. I replied right away, congrats. See you tomorrow? The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared, appeared again, disappeared again. Finally, he sent, tomorrow, for PM. The cafe across from the library. Does that count as a date? I stared at the screen, laughing. I typed something, then deleted it. Typed again. In the end, I just sent one line. I hope so. 3 seconds later, a blue heart emoji appeared. I stared at it, completely dazed. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't the start of a relationship yet, either. But it was enough to make the rest of that evening feel weightless. The next day, I got to the cafe almost 20 minutes early. Jake watched me change my shirt for the 3rd time before I walked out the door. You going to meet the president or something? No. Then why do you keep changing? I looked down at the blue button-up I had on. Does this look okay? Jake laughed like he was about to pass out. Oh no. You actually like this guy. I didn't deny it. For the first time in years. I didn't want to deny it anymore. The cafe sat right on the corner across from the library. Maple leaves covered the sidewalk. Students bustled in and out. Right at 4, I saw Callan. He was wearing a cream sweater, dark blue jeans, his arm still in a brace. But his smile was just as bright as it had been the day he first walked into that hospital room. The moment he saw me, he smiled. I figured you'd be late. I was early. I know. How'd you know? The coffee on your table's already gone cold. I looked down. Sure enough, Callan sat down across from me. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. We just looked at each other, then burst out laughing at the same time. It's strange, Callan said. What is? Just a week ago. We were still two strangers. I nodded. And now? I feel like I've known you for a very long time. I looked into his blue eyes. For the first time in a crowded cafe. Amid the chatter and laughter of students. Amid a peaceful autumn afternoon. I knew one thing for certain. That meeting in the hospital hadn't been the best chapter of the story. It had only been the opening line. The love story between Callan and me truly began the moment those two first cups of coffee were set down on the table. Callan raised his cup of coffee. Cheers. I thought today was our date. It is. Then why cheers? Because we both survived. The illness. The worst stretch of time. I laughed. Our two cups clinked together. A small, soft click. If someone had told me then that years later we'd still keep the habit of clinking cups every time we had coffee together, I probably would have thought it was just a joke. But some memories are made in the simplest of ways. So, Callan rested his chin on his hand. Is this our first date? I nearly choked on my coffee. You're just going to ask that straight out? Yeah. Aren't you embarrassed? I am. But if I were, I wouldn't ask. I looked at him. What if I said no? I'd ask again in a few days. What if I still said no? Then we'd stay friends. He answered so quickly it caught me off guard. That's it. Callan nodded. Nash, I like you. But I'd rather have you still in my life. No matter what we are to each other. I don't want to lose you either. I fell silent. Maybe that was the line that moved me more than any confession could have. Because it put no pressure on me. Made no demands. It was simply sincere. I smiled. Okay. Okay to what? This is our first date. Callan's smile lit up instantly. I'll remember this day. After finishing our coffee, we walked around campus together. It had been almost a week since I'd last been back. The late autumn air made everything feel more beautiful than usual. Rows of red maples. Students studying on the lawn. The sound of a guitar drifting from the music club. Callan walked slowly since he still had to favor his arm. There's something I want to ask. Go ahead. Have you come out to anyone yet? I shook my head. No. No one. No. Not even Jake and Oliver? I don't have the courage yet. Callan nodded. I'm not in a rush. I won't push you. It's just. He looked at me. Whenever you're ready. I'll be right there. I smiled softly. You always know how to say the most moving things. Really? Yeah. I've had a lot of practice. With who? No one. You're the first. My face went hot. I don't believe you. That's fine too. He gave a sly grin. A week later, life gradually settled back into its normal rhythm. I went back to my packed class schedule. Callan started physical therapy 3 times a week. Even so, we saw each other almost every day. Some days, lunch together. Some days, studying side by side in the library. Some days, just a 15-minute walk around the pond on campus. What surprised me was, being around Callan, I was no longer just Nash who only studies. He'd pull me out of the design studio to watch the sunset. Force me to take proper breaks. Even dragged me along to the school's autumn festival. I don't like crowds. I know. Then why drag me along? Because you need to actually live. I am living. No. You're just existing. That line stuck with me for a long time. The school's autumn festival was always packed. Lights strung up all across the square. Food trucks lined up in long rows. Music echoed throughout campus. Callan pulled me toward a ring toss booth. Want to try? I'm terrible at this. So am I. The result? We lost every single round. The vendor laughed. Want to try one more time, you two? Callan looked at me. I've got $2 left. I've got 3. Combine them. Last try. This time, my ring landed around the neck of a brown teddy bear. I won. I shouted like a little kid. Callan looked even happier than I did. See? Told you you could do it. I hugged the bear. This should go in my room. No. Callan shook his head. Why? That's the first prize you ever won. Give it to me. You're being so unreasonable. Yep. No. I held the bear tighter. This one's mine. In the end, after 10 minutes of negotiating, the bear was named Duke, the exact name of the golden retriever that had landed Callan in the hospital. Why Duke? I asked. He smiled. So that every time I see it, I'll remember that a dog once accidentally led me to the person I like. I stood there frozen, amid the music, amid the lights, amid hundreds of students passing by. Callan had just said that he liked me, not in some vague way, not just implying it. He'd said it outright, very naturally, very gently. He looked at me. Was that too fast? I shook my head, then stepped closer. The distance between us now just a few dozen centimeters. I like you too. Since when? I don't know. Maybe. Since you secretly split your waffle with me in the hospital. Callan laughed loudly. That's a pretty romantic reason. I'm serious. So am I. He reached out his right hand. Not to embrace me, not to hold my hand, just to lightly touch his fingertip to mine. A very light touch, very careful, as if we both wanted to be certain the other person was really there. Right at that moment, a voice full of shock rang out behind us. Nash! I turned around. It was Ryan, my project group partner. He was standing just a few meters away. His eyes went first to our two hands, almost touching, then up to my face. I felt my heart drop straight down. This would be the first time someone from school had seen Callan and me in a moment that no longer looked like friendship at all.